Hey, everybody, and welcome to our special tasting for Make-A-Wish MidAtlantic. My name is Joe Smith. I'm a senior brand ambassador here at Stone Tower Winery. Today, we are going to taste through four of the wines that you bought in a kit, and we're pretty excited about these wines. When you look at Stone Tower Winery, you're going to always see two labels. You're going to see an estate label, and then you're also going to see a wild boar label. The wild boar label just tells you that although the wine was made on the estate, we brought that fruit from somewhere else. And we searched for the best fruit we can possibly find. We'd like to find it all in Virginia because it's more representative of what we do, but sometimes we have to go outside of the state. Over time, we will do away with most of the wild boar label because we'll have enough fruit from the estate to make all estate wines. A little bit about the winery. The winery first fruit was planted in 2009. Our first tasting room was actually opened in 2013, so we're relatively young. And we make really superb wines that I think you're going to find are a little more like Old World wines. Old World usually defined as Europe and the rest of the world is new. And so they're going to be a little more earthy, a little more fresh fruit, and not so much real heavy stewed fruit or cooked fruit. And I think as we go through these wines, you're really going to enjoy them. They are unique wines, I think, that we've chosen for this today, and I'm going to try to give you a little bit of overview on each of the wines as we do them. So let's get right into this and talk a little bit about wine number one, which is a 2018 Estate Sauvignon Blanc. This wine is unique for a couple of reasons. You know, most people think of Sauvignon Blanc as having a lot of grassiness and also having a lot of fresh grapefruit or pink grapefruit. And that's very, very reminiscent of wine from Marlborough, which is the South Island of New Zealand. I think when you look at this Sauvignon Blanc and you look at the nose on this wine and you look at the taste of the wine, what you're going to find is a little rounder wine, and it's going to be there's going to be some lovely fresh fruit in the wine. However, it's going to have a softness that Sauvignon Blanc does not have from New Zealand. So this wine, I believe, more represents what you would find in the Loire Valley, and it would more represent Sancerre. This particular wine, very nice wine, finished in stainless steel, it is 90% Sauvignon Blanc and 10% Semillon. When you use Semillon in Sauvignon Blanc, what you often find is a little bit softer wine, a little bit rounder wine than if you just use 100% Sauvignon Blanc. So for those of you who are familiar with Sancerre, I think what you're going to find is this wine is very, very similar in style. The wine would pair extremely well with fish, with things that are cooked in a light butter sauce. Just really, really lovely example of a French Sauvignon Blanc. So let's talk about wine number two, which is really an interesting wine. It's Viognier. Viognier is, in fact, the Virginia state fruit, or the Virginia state grape, which is kind of interesting because it originated from Condrieu in the northern Rhone Valley. It is interesting also that Norton is the only grape indigenous to the state of Virginia, and it happens to be the Missouri state grape. You guys try to figure that out. It's above my pay grade. But this particular wine is interesting because Viognier I find to be very polarizing. People really like Viognier, or they tend not to like Viognier. There's very little middle ground. It's a very distinct wine, sometimes referred to as Chardonnay's exotic stepsister. It is a heavy wine. Some people think it has an oily texture. I think that sounds kind of like something you're doing in your garage, so I call it a silky texture. But the wine is very, very heavy and tends to have, especially Virginia Viognier, often has a very floral characteristic, a lot of white flower, a lot of honeysuckle. This particular Viognier is a little different. It's more reminiscent of a wine that you would find where it originated in the northern Rhone Valley in Condrieu. Done in oak, which gives it a real roundness. I think you'll find this wine to be especially nice, a lot heavier than the Sauvignon Blanc that you just drank before, but I think you'll find it's extremely nice. This wine pairs extremely well with spicy food. You know, often we find wine drinkers, and I have a rule about wine pairing. You know, if you like them together, you eat and drink them together. However, I think when you have a wine like this, you really have to think about what they're going to be paired with. If you happen to like spicy food, Viognier is an incredibly good choice for spicy food because it will actually complement the spiciness and it will make the wine seem nice and smooth. If you drink a high tannic, high alcohol wine with spicy food, what you're going to actually get is you're going to get some burn from the alcohol in the wine, and then it's going to make the food seem a little bit spicier. So this particular Viognier, absolutely perfect for spicy food. So guys, we're going to go on to the 2017 Cabernet Franc. You see a lot of Cabernet Franc in the state of Virginia. Cabernet Franc is a Cabernet Sauvignon-like wine, a little lighter in body, a little softer than Cabernet Sauvignon. Characteristically, if Cabernet Franc is done in a cooler climate, you find a characteristic that's a little like green pepper, and that happens to be called pyrazine, and that comes from the fact that the fruit isn't quite as ripe as in a warmer climate. This particular wine is from Virginia, and although the wine was made here, but we bought this the fruit in Orange, Virginia. Done in oak for almost 17 months, so it's been in oak for a very long time. And the wine does not have that pyrazine or dark green pepper characteristic. Very, very lovely wine, particularly good with grilled meats. Grilled pork tenderloin, grilled pork chops, a little bit of even steak, although it's not quite heavy enough to hold up to things like wild game and things like that. Really just a lovely wine, probably one of the best-selling red wines that we have here at Stone Tower. The last wine we're going to drink, which I think is really one of my favorites, is the Wild Boar 2016 Merlot. Kind of an interesting story about Merlot. Merlot is often thought of as kind of flat or singularly dimensioned, and when you really think about it, along the right bank of the Gironde estuary in Bordeaux, it is a very revered grape, and it grows extremely well in that soil, especially when it is mixed with Cabernet Franc, which gives the wine a little more structure. And you often see that on the right bank of Bordeaux because Saint-Emilion grows a lot of Cabernet Franc. This particular wine adheres to the rules of the TTB, which means that it has to be at least 75% of the varietal, and then it can be blended after that. This particular wine is 80% Merlot. It is about 15% Cabernet Sauvignon and a touch of Cabernet Franc. I think the most interesting thing about this wine, and the thing that really makes it stand out as a Merlot, is that the wine was done in second fill French oak. So that means I've used the oak once before. Generally, I can use an oak barrel about 5 fills, and at the end of the 5th fill, it has lost all of its oakiness. I can still use it, but it really just imparts softness in the wine and doesn't give it any oakiness. So this is second fill French oak, which gives it a little bit more softness and not real heavy oak. And then at the end of that, we were going to bottle this wine. And when we bottle a wine at a winery, you usually keep it in the bottle for probably 4, 5, 6 months, so it settles, the bottle shock goes away, and it creates a softness in the wine. The interesting thing about this was that when it was finished and we were ready to bring it into the winery, we had a large variety of red wines already in inventory and decided to keep it actually in the bottle a little bit longer. So it was in a bottle another almost complete year before we brought it into the winery. This particular wine fools a lot of people. It is a heavier Merlot, and the bottle has been extremely kind to this wine. This wine has a fullness and a roundness that's just lovely, and it has an incredibly good long finish. I think this wine is probably one of the best Wild Boar red wines that we do on the estate, and I think you will find that it is absolutely a really incredibly pleasing red wine. We thank you guys very much for joining us today. We hope that if you have any questions, you look us up on the website and email us for any information we can provide. And certainly, if you're in Leesburg, Virginia, we have a beautiful property, and we would love to have you come visit us. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy these wines.